You're listening to the weekly wrap-up on Sprott Money News.
Greetings once again from Sprott Money News and SprottMoney.com. It's Friday, August the 17th, 2018, and this is your weekly wrap-up. I'm your host, Craig Hemke, and joining us again this week is our old friend, Eric Sprott. Eric, good morning.
Hey, Craig. I find it interesting you say old friend, and I'm feeling a little older after last week, so we got to chat about that.
Boy, we've all aged considerably on this deal. But, hey, before we get started, I want to point out something new. Is that this week we want to extend a warm welcome to our newest listeners on Spotify. Spotify is a digital music service that brings listeners millions of songs, and now podcasts too. It's the newest way to access the Sprott Money weekly wrap-ups and these Ask the Expert podcasts.
Hey, Craig, that's pretty good news. It's exciting. I know that Spotify has many millions of customers, and we'll get to spread the word a little wider. So that's great news.
That is very good news. All right, so let's spread the word, my friend. It has been one of the roughest 100 days in the metals that I think either you or I can remember. And this last week has been almost had kind of the feeling of capitulation to some extent. Gold at one point was down $50 on the week, from 12.11 down to 11.61, and now we're back up to about 11.84 this morning. You've been through a few of these in your life, Eric. Any words of wisdom for everyone?
Well, more than I want to recall, quite frankly. But I'm sort of reminded, there's things that the market does. Not that I believe in the market being an honest market, but the market does. That seem to go totally against the grain of what you would expect. And I was reminded that back in the lead up to the Bear Stearns bankruptcy, as everyone was realizing, oh my God, we have a financial crisis going on, the price of gold went from $1,020 to $700 during the financial crisis.
Yeah.
And of course, the argument is that the powers that be, who know that you're in trouble, create a weakness in gold to kind of mask the trouble. But ultimately, the truth comes out, and things right themselves. And of course, gold went from $700 then to $1,900. So those who got shaken out would have very much regretted it. And of course, everything I see in the physical markets is very optimistic. I mean, I think of all these people that live in all these countries where their currencies are getting hammered, whether it's the Brazilians, the Indians, the Turks, the Iranians. We're getting more and more people all the time, all of whom have a sort of a disposition towards gold anyway. So, and I read this morning that the Asian demand is very robust. Well, you know what? I'd expect it to be robust. I mean, the Indians consume 1,000 tons a year out of roughly 3,000 tons mined. What happens if all of a sudden they're witnessing their currency weakening, and they buy 50% more? My God, the effect on the physical market would be astounding. Whereas, you don't have that kind of demand in the developed countries for the most part. So I see it as, we got to wait it out. And, of course, we do see things in the paper markets which control the prices that you and I talk about all the time, where the setup for gold to rally has been incredible, as it was last week when we spoke. And then some people were postulating, well, we'll get one washout here and clean everybody out, okay? And we've had that washout now, and it'll be very interesting to see if yet again the commercial banks were able to decrease their short position and increase their long position, and of course the speculative funds going the other way, and they're going to set themselves up for getting hammered. So we had great numbers come out last week in the Commitment of Traders report. I suspect we'll have great numbers again this week, and these things always are pretty well, follow the wash, rinse, repeat situation we've been in for many, many years here. And, of course, the speculative funds always lose. So that would suggest that gold should rise from here.
In a sense, kind of the same old thing we've seen now several times in the last decade, where the Western investors sell the paper and push down the paper price while the Eastern investors buy the physical.
Yeah. It's funny. I get very skeptical of a lot of things that are going on sort of in the world economy, if you will. And I was sort of harkened back to an item of interest this week when Royal Bank of Scotland finally was assessed a $4.9 billion fine for something they did in 2008. 10 years later, the fine comes out. You got to wonder about the timing of that, okay? But I don't wonder, but I know exactly what was happening. They had to wait 10 years for Royal Bank of Scotland to be able to pay the damn thing.
Yep.
And of course, when you're a bank, you get to borrow at 0 and lend at 3. Hey, if you just keep your nose clean, you're going to make money, and you're going to turn your fortune around. And finally, 10 years later, their fortune was turned around. They pay off the U.S. government, and the next thing you know, they announce a dividend. So what a wonderful thing to be a bank, when you can own government bonds, you don't even have to include them in your capital. You can lever them as much as you want. Next thing you know, you've come out of it. And it's this favoritism towards the financial world that is, in essence, dispossessing the average worker. So between that and another thing I noticed is that we keep getting these statistics, U.S. economic statistics, where, for example, GDP came out of 4, but they revised the first quarter way down, and therefore the second quarter went up. We had housing starts. They said they were up in July, but they had revised June to being way down. The fact is that the July number was worse than the June number. But when you revise the previous month, you can say it's up. And we're seeing a lot of that. It sort of, makes me a little skittish to think that, is this just a setup here that we keep getting all these phony numbers when we're not making any progress whatsoever, but the numbers look good every month because we've revised the previous ones down. So
right.
We have to be a little bit aware that those things seem to be going on more and more all the time here.
Yeah. Well, and as you said, in summary, it's been a very difficult week, but that commitment of traders report this afternoon will probably show, levels maybe we've never even seen before of the banks moving to where they are not the ones that are short anymore, and instead it's all the speculators. That would sure seem to be a positive setup going forward.
Yeah, no, we're there. I mean, we're perfectly positioned where things should reverse in terms of of course, the sentiment's just awful for gold, and people who watch those sort of things, they see that the sentiment gets so low, they can only go one way. I mean, it has to get better. So,
yeah,
I think we're all right that way, and I do look forward to seeing the commitment of traders report. And China seems to be coming back a little here. The premiums were up pretty good yesterday. We're up around $6 premiums, which we were almost flat before that. So, maybe if between the various Asian countries that love gold, we could see a pretty good turn here.
Speaking of sentiment, my friend, oh boy, did we get a washout this week in the shares. The Hui index has fallen just in the first 4 days this week from 159 to 139. That's a drop of nearly 13% in a week. Is that kind of you've seen this before. Is that kind of a capitulation in the sector? Is that just the final shares of big money getting washed out, and now finally we're at a bottom?
Yeah. Well, all I can say, Craig, is it better be, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's a big decline in a week. I mean, you don't be annualizing that. I mean,
right.
We'll have to end these discussions in about 8 weeks. Anyway, I've seen it before. And in fact, I can remember so distinctly at the bottom in 16, the shares got pounded the week before.
Yeah.
For no reason. It didn't even seem like there was a reason. And it was the final capitulation one day before the stocks went up by, oh my God, I think they went up by like 100% or so in no time, in 6 months.
Yeah.
So I've seen this before. And people do lose confidence in it. And, of course, they're looking at, once you see gold go through 1,200, everyone's going, oh, my God, we're going to go below 1,000 or 700 or numbers like that, which is extremely unlikely because nobody will be mining gold at $700. So I think we're pretty safe there. So, it's certainly a sign of capitulation, and I hope that that's what ultimately manifests itself here.
And specific to a couple of companies we've talked about from time to time here, I know you've got a few favorites. Any thoughts you can add on what's happened in some of those this week? Yeah,
well, of course, Kirkland Lake got totally bombed, and it went from, I guess it had hit a high of almost 31, and it's at under 25, I think, now. So that's a pretty good hit in a very short time, probably in about 6 or 7 days. I can tell you that, I'm certainly not disappointed with with how we're operating. Yes, I'm disappointed in the gold price, but the operations have done well. As I've mentioned before, it's hard to imagine what happens to gold production when your grade goes from 20 to 60 grams, but we have an ore body that we're going to be getting into that does have 60 grams. I suspect might be a little higher ultimately when we get in there. So things can change, and talking about the Fosterville mine here, things can change very dramatically. We may end up being somewhat surprised how the results come out in the final analysis. So I think it's all good there. Novo came out and announced that they're seeing good continuity in the Pilbara drilling and testing that they have. The various conversations I have with people who have been on the ground, including people at Kirkland, Novo, Pacton. I think everyone is a total believer in the sort of universality of the deposit and the grade, although we don't have data on grade yet that we can bank on. But I'm certainly pleased after the conversations that I have with various people about what's happening down there. So we've got that to look forward to as well.
And you mentioned some Canadian stocks from time to time too. The Garibaldi was one that you liked. Do you still feel good about that one?
Well, I do, and it's gone down quite a bit actually. I'm an over 20% owner. Being an over 20% owner, I'm allowed in a 1 year timeline to buy 5 private purchases, which I've now done. Okay, and I don't know what percent I own, the 23 or 24, but I can't buy anymore, and I'm very, very frustrated that I can't buy more because believe me, if I could buy more, I'd buy more. And when I look at the trading every day, and I look at the number of trades by dealer, and I'm always looking for, okay, was there a big seller here or not? And I'm looking at, oh my God, the biggest guy sold all of 20,000 shares, but 2 stock is like $50,000, like big deal, and he knocks the stock down by 5%. I'm like, man, what would happen if I could go in there and just put a bid in,
Right,
and it wouldn't be for 20,000 shares. So anyway, and I'm, having listened to some of the interviews of the people on the ground there, I mean, I'm pretty excited about what will happen when they finally get the news release out. We're all getting a little impatient about it, and I guess I find myself in that camp. I'd hate to think that some people are selling their shares down here when we might have one of the greatest ore bodies of all time. So hopefully there'll be a press release sooner or later that takes us there, and but I'm excited about it. Actually, it's funny to be excited as the stock's hitting new lows, but I am.
I think that is remarkable too. Like you said, somebody selling what would, I'm sure to them, feel like a lot of shares, but it's not a whole lot in the big picture. But yet,
yeah, I know, it's
down
crazy.
It goes. All right, one last question, Eric. We had a listener question come in this week. Someone looking to add some physical metal. I think really maybe for the first time here at these prices. And this question just mainly was, in your basic opinion, is it worth it to pay the premium that's always associated with something like an American Silver Eagle, or is it fine just to buy the generic round and save yourself some of that money over spot?
Sure. Well, I have both, of course. I own lots of coins and I own lots of silver. I like the coins because they're fungible. People will accept a coin. Pretty hard to move a 1,000-ounce bar of silver. I think there'll always be a premium for the coin because it costs money to punch out a coin. And it depends on what size you're talking here. I mean, if somebody's putting millions of dollars into it, I don't know if you buy $1 million worth of coins because you don't need to lug that around. But I would say for someone who wants something that will be readily usable, then the coins are, of course, the better vehicle. If somebody is speculating on the price of silver over the longer run, and you want to make a max margin on it, sure, buy the 1,000-ounce bars or some other generic kind of coin and pay less of a premium.
Fair enough. And I tell you what, that dovetails right into as we wrap up this call. You Canadians up there have these RRSP accounts. You
Yes.
probably know some folks.
Yeah.
In America, we call them IRAs. Well, hey, you know what? Here we are with the depressed prices. We just talked about ways that you can purchase physical metal. And, of course, you can invest in your RRSP account year-round up there, even here in the summertime. And so Sprott Money has partnered up with Questrade so that anyone can buy bullion in their registered retirement account. I mean, what a perfect time to do it. The process is fast. It's simple. So don't wait until the deadline to invest in your future. Visit sprottmoney.com or call 888-861-0775 today. Maybe take some money out of the equity markets and put it into these devalued precious metals at this point. It sounds like a pretty good idea to me. Eric, thank you for your time this morning. We survived this week, and hopefully next week we'll have something better to talk about.
Let's hope so. It's been a while, my friend.
Certainly seems that way, doesn't it? All right. Well, hey, have a great weekend. And from all of us here at Sprott Money News and SprottMoney.com, thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again next Friday.